thank you for allowing me to talk to you via recording. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I really wish I could be. But I did want to convey some of my takeaways from my visit to Okinawa with Master Borjas to see Master McLean and his family. So a couple of quick points to make. Okinawa is fantastic. It's a first world island. There is nothing not first world about it. Okay. However, its history is present everywhere. It's so fascinating. I learned that Japanese is not their indigenous language. Should have occurred to me before, but it didn't. A couple historical events that I want to convey that are important a little bit later. Okinawa became a Japanese prefecture in 1879. Okay, that's an important time frame in karate history as well. 1880s, 1890s, that kind of time frame is really important for us. The Ryukyu Kingdom, it existed from 1429 until 1879. However, from 1609 until 1879, it was under the control of the Satsuma clan, who was in league with the shogunate in Japan. Now, the third very important time frame in where the history is always present was when the U.S. invaded for the Battle of Okinawa. That started April 1st, 1945. Now, first, I want to thank the McLean family. They hosted Master Borjas and me when we visited in last October. They were so gracious. They were so wonderful. And here's a picture of all of us, except for their oldest, Madison. She's behind the camera taking this picture. And we can see Master McLean, Master Borjas, Cheyenne, and Kira and Liam. And of course, Madison is behind the camera, but we know that she's there. They showed us so much hospitality. They welcomed us into our home, into their home. They drove us all around. They introduced us to so much in Okinawa. And they opened up their kitchen and their tastes to us. One of those was rice tacos, and it's fantastic. Master McLean knows the history of them, so I'm going to allow him to tell it. But I thought it was just absolutely neat. Now, we have Kira and Liam there. Kira's looking at the camera, and I want to take this opportunity to point out that she also has been in Cheyenne-Ryu pretty much her whole life. So from early on, Kira has been involved. She may not remember this, though. All right. Some takeaways. So Dan Antoninson Sensei, he gave us a tour, one of a couple tours we received. And he took us to this Shinto shrine, and at that shrine, in one of the buildings off the beaten path, is this mural. And I took a picture of it. He explained this mural. He said, look at these. This is Naha Harbor. You've got these big ocean-going vessels, okay? And then you have these smaller river-going boats. What they would do, this was a major trading port. So Okinawa is trading with Japan, or China, and Japan. So the big boats would come into the harbor. They would offload supplies from those boats to the river boats and then take the supplies upriver. Or they'd take offload at the port, too. Now, Dan had this great idea. He said, look, the big ocean-going vessels, people could do whatever they want. They had plenty of room. They could go into climbing stances or whatever. They pull ropes, whatever it is they're doing. It was those smaller boats, the river-going boats. There was a lot less room. Yeah, they're bigger, slightly bigger than canoes. Well, he had this idea that at the back, the person at the back with the oar, perfect stance for them is the cat stance. All right? Maybe that's the origin of the cat stance. Now, in the middle of the boat, you get a little bit wider, not a horse stance kind of width, but a half moon stance, like the Sanshin stance from our half moon form. That's a very strong, stable stance. It can push against the interior of the boat. And when you're offloading supplies from the big boats to small boats, you're rocking a bit. You can catch those supplies and put them in your boat. Okay, so his idea is the Sanshin stance may have originated at the Naha port and the cat stance. Now, at the castle, that's where the nobility lived. That's where the horses were. They were probably doing horse stances because they were dealing with horses. That would not be happening at the port. Now here is Dan Antonsen Sensei. He gave us a tour, and he's showing us examples. So here are some ruins at a castle, and he's showing us the stairs that they did. They are not our Western kind of stairs, like those built on the right more recently. What they had were elongated, downward sloped stairs, which were very easy to defend against. So here he is showing, looks like a Sanshin stance possibly, where he can push someone back very easily, and they would just slide down the stair, this ramp. Now, if they're welcome, maybe they can take a cart or a horse up the ramp fairly easily. But they're very easy to defend. Now, here's another castle where they would have these walls, outer perimeter walls, or even inner perimeter walls, where they might have multiple sets of walls. And what I kept on noticing were these holes at the bottom and then at the top. And Dan explained these, that there would be door jambs down there at the bottom and at the top, and the doors would be bolted to those and swing along those door jambs. Well, those door jambs at the bottom, they're like 6 to 8 inches tall. They're awfully tall, so you have to step over them to get in or out. Here's another example of one. So this is at Shurijo Castle. This is the seat of the Ryukyu Kingdom. This is the castle where the king lived. And we can see here is the door jamb on the bottom. Here's the top. Here are the doors. Dan had this idea, and he said that in his system, they have a form, a kata, that kind of hops back and forth, as if you might be jumping over that door jamb. Well, this is where Itosu, our great master in our lineage, grew up. And he created the Pinnan forms, our Pyanan forms. Well, think about Pyanan number 5. Okay, we come in, we stomp and smash, and we jump up and down. Okay. Well, what are we jumping over? Well, we had 10 martial artists are going to give us 10 different answers. Well, this inspired me to think, well, maybe Itosu Sensei envisioned jumping over a door jamb. Maybe, maybe not. Now, this is also the castle where they would have had horses. Horses would have been coming and going all the time. This may be where the horse stance came from. Okay, so they didn't have the confines, the constraints of a boat to try to balance in. Maybe this is where the horse stance came from. Now, some of you may have seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge. It's based on a vicious battle during the battle for Okinawa. And you can see, this is from the movie. You can see this wide plateau, tremendous fighting that's portrayed in the movie. There is definitely tremendous fighting. No question about that. But I think they may have exaggerated a bit, because here is the actual Hacksaw Ridge. I think we're looking at Master McLean's back here, and the width of that ridge, it looks to me to be about 5 or 6 Master McLean's wide. So Now, there are a lot of fighting did occur there, and there's certainly tunnels underneath that. And here toward one area of it, here is a tunnel that I took a picture of that leads down, or an entrance to a tunnel. And according to Dan, there are still remains down there from the Japanese soldiers. They're leaving them undisturbed. Finally, I want to convey another just fascinating tidbit. We all know what Spam is, and we probably all don't think much of it. This is not a go-to food for any of us in the U.S. Maybe not even the top 100. Well, it's pretty special. I bought this shirt for my daughter. So go back to World War II. The Japanese have just absolutely brutalized the Okinawans. Okay. Now, prior to the invasion, the Okinawans were told that even worse horrors would be subjected to them by the Americans. Well, now, to prepare for that invasion, and during that invasion, pretty much everything was destroyed. About 1 in 3 Okinawans died during that fighting. And in part, the Japanese used them as cannon fodder. Human shields. But now, after the battle, the Americans shared their food with the Okinawans. And remember, the Okinawans are starving. They've got nothing. There's no food there. There's no nothing. And the Americans are giving them Spam. That's one of the things that the Americans had that they could share. And they did. So what's happened is Spam has become an honored gift to give and receive when visiting an Okinawan's house. And it really represents a cultural highlight which is a link to a really bright spot in one of the darkest times in their history. Well, I wanted to share some of my takeaways. I know that Masters McLean and Henriksen and Borjas are going to share a lot more, but I wanted to share my thoughts with you, and thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to training with you.